Have you noticed it? More and more boys and men quietly slipping away. Not with a bang, not with a dramatic meltdown, but with silence. They stop showing up. They stop trying. They stop believing there's even a point. And here's the part that hits hardest. Most of them never say a word. Why? Because we taught them from the time they were little. Be tough. Man up. Don't show weakness. So they smile when you ask if they're okay. But inside, they're quietly giving up. Maybe you've seen it in your own life. A friend who's always busy, but deep down, he's just checked out. A son who seems glued to his screen, hiding from a world that feels too heavy. Or maybe it's even you. Here's the uncomfortable truth. This isn't just a few men struggling. It's a growing wave. Across schools, workplaces, and even families, boys and men are stepping back, feeling invisible, and slowly shutting down. And almost no one is talking about it. But tonight, we're going to talk about it. We're going to pull back the curtain and uncover the real reason so many men are quietly giving up. Because behind the silence is a story we can't afford to ignore. And you probably know a man like this. The guy who shrugs when you ask how he's doing. The friend who says, "I'm fine," even though you can see he's carrying something heavy. The son who locks himself in his room, headphones on, pretending he doesn't hear you call. We see it every day, but we don't talk about it. Because silence has become the language of struggle for so many men. They won't tell you when they're drowning in bills. They won't say they're terrified of failing their families. They won't admit they feel empty, even when their lives look normal from the outside. And here's the heartbreaking part. They've learned to hide it so well, you might never notice. Think about it. How many men do you know who work long hours but never talk about their dreams anymore? How many boys laugh with friends online, but go to bed feeling completely alone? It's like an invisible battle happening in bedrooms, classrooms, office cubicles, even church pews. A quiet war that no one sees. Because men are taught to wear armor, but armor comes with a cost. Behind the mask of "I've got this" is a storm of exhaustion, fear, and doubt. And every time they stay quiet, the weight grows heavier. This is why so many men are quietly giving up. Not because they're weak, but because they've been told their whole lives that asking for help makes them less of a man. And so, they choose silence. From the very first steps a boy takes, the world begins whispering to him, "Be strong. Don't cry. Toughen up. Real men don't show weakness." At first, it sounds like encouragement, like a call to greatness. But over time, those words stop feeling like advice and start feeling like chains. Think about it. A teenage boy is told to get good grades, to win in sports, to always be confident. If he stumbles, he's lazy. If he struggles, he's weak. There's almost no room for him to just be human. Then adulthood comes crashing in. Now, he's expected to land the job, climb the ladder, provide for a family, maybe even buy the house with the white picket fence. And if he doesn't check those boxes fast enough, society doesn't stay quiet. It whispers, "What's wrong with him?" Here's the painful truth. For centuries, a man's worth has been measured not by his heart, not by his character, but by what he can produce, by how much he can earn, how strong he can appear, how well he can carry everyone else's burdens. But here's the question nobody asks out loud. Who carries him? Who tells him it's okay to say, "I can't keep up, I'm drowning"? Almost no one. Because the world doesn't reward vulnerability, it punishes it. So what happens? Men put on the mask. They push through the exhaustion. They nod, smile, and say, I'm fine. All while something inside them quietly breaks. And eventually, some men stop trying, not because they don't care, not because they're weak, but because carrying the crushing weight of endless expectations, with no safe place to set it down, slowly destroys their will to keep going. Let me ask you this. How long could you keep running if you were carrying a weight that heavy? How long before you'd collapse too? You've probably felt it, but the numbers prove it. Across America, men are quietly slipping through the cracks. And when you look at the data, it paints a heartbreaking picture. Let's start with education. For every 10 women earning a college degree, only about 7 men are. Think about that. 7. And the gap is growing. Now careers. Men used to dominate the workforce. But today, labor force participation for men has fallen to historic lows. Millions of working-age men are out of the job market entirely. Not because they're lazy, but because they feel locked out, left behind, or like they just can't compete. And relationships? Here's where it gets even harder. Surveys show nearly 1 in 3 young men haven't had a romantic partner in years. Many report feeling isolated, unwanted, invisible. Loneliness isn't just a feeling. It's deadly. Men are 4 times more likely to die by suicide than women. 4 times. Life expectancy for men in the US is 6 years shorter than for women. Not because men don't care, but because they're less likely to seek help, less likely to talk about pain, less likely to admit when something's wrong. All these numbers, education, work, love, health, even life itself, are pointing in one direction. It's not that men are giving up because they're weak. It's that the system around them is quietly failing them, and nobody's paying attention. So the question is, what do we do when the numbers aren't just statistics, but real lives being lost, one by one? Let's step inside the male mind for a moment. What's really going on when boys and men quietly shut down? When they stop showing up, stop speaking up, and start giving up? At the core, there's a silent belief that many carry. No one cares about my struggles unless I'm succeeding. Think about that. If a man loses his job, he's not just facing unemployment. He's wrestling with the thought that his value as a person has disappeared. If he admits he's depressed, he fears being seen as weak. And if he stays silent, the world often assumes he's fine. It's a trap, a constant tug-of-war between wanting to be vulnerable and needing to look strong. Inside, the pressure builds. Self-doubt creeps in. Every setback, a failed relationship, a missed promotion, even a small rejection, can feel like proof that he's not enough. And here's the part most people don't see. Men often don't stop trying because they don't care. They stop trying because deep down, they believe they'll never measure up. It's like running a race where the finish line keeps moving further away. No matter how hard you push, you never arrive. So instead of sprinting harder, many men step off the track completely. And maybe you've seen this in your own life. A friend who slowly stopped calling, a brother who hides behind jokes, a coworker who seems fine, until one day he's just gone. This isn't weakness, it's exhaustion. Exhaustion from carrying a weight nobody else seems to notice. So when we talk about boys and men giving up, we have to understand, it's not about laziness, it's about an inner voice that's been whispering for years. You don't matter unless you win. And that voice, that's what's breaking them. Have you ever wondered what happens when men quietly give up? Not in loud protests, not in dramatic scenes, but in silence. The cost isn't always visible, but it's everywhere. It shows up in empty classrooms. Fewer young men are enrolling in college than ever before. It shows up in workplaces, where promotions go unclaimed, Because some men just stop trying. And it shows up at home, where relationships break down because he feels like he has nothing left to give. But here's the truth nobody talks about. When men step back, everyone pays the price. Families lose fathers who are present but emotionally distant. Communities lose mentors, coaches, role models who could have guided the next generation. And society loses innovation, leadership, creativity, because too many men are quietly sitting on the sidelines. Think about it. What happens when an entire generation of boys grows up believing they don't matter? What kind of future does that create? This isn't just about men. It's about the ripple effect. The partners who feel abandoned, the kids who grow up without guidance, the workplaces missing out on potential leaders. The hidden cost is heavy, and the longer we ignore it, the bigger the price becomes. Think about this for a second. Why are so many young men disappearing quietly into the background of society? Let me tell you a story. A college sophomore, bright, ambitious, full of energy, drops out halfway through his second year. Why? Not because he wasn't smart enough, not because he couldn't keep up, but because the pressure of being the man in his family, the unspoken expectation to provide and to never fail, became too much. He walked away, and no one even noticed, and he's not alone. Another story, this one closer to home. A young father working 2 jobs to keep his family afloat. Every day, he smiles at his kids. But at night, he sits in his car for an extra 20 minutes before walking in the door. Why? Because inside that house, he's terrified they'll see how broken he really feels. Now, these aren't just isolated stories. They echo in culture too. Look around. Movies, shows, even social media. Men are often painted as either villains or jokes. Rarely do we see the quiet battles, the silent weight they carry. And when someone finally speaks out, they're told to man up, to stop complaining. But here's the truth. These stories, these cultural snapshots, aren't about weakness. They're warnings. Warnings of what happens when we ignore half the population's pain. So I have to ask you, what happens when an entire generation feels unseen, unheard, and unvalued? Because if we don't start paying attention now, these quiet stories will become the loudest crisis of our time. You know, the truth is, men aren't disappearing because they're weak. They're disappearing because for too long, society told them to stay quiet. But silence doesn't have to be the end of the story. What if, just imagine, boys grew up knowing it was okay to fail, to ask for help, to feel something other than anger? What if men were encouraged to seek purpose outside of just providing or being strong? It starts small, a conversation that doesn't get brushed off with man up, a friend checking in and actually listening when a guy says, "I'm not doing okay." A father showing his son that strength is also about kindness, patience, and vulnerability. Because here's the thing, change won't happen from lectures or blame. It happens when we create spaces where men feel valued, not just for what they produce, but for who they are. Imagine a world where boys don't grow up terrified of failing, but curious about what they might learn from it. Where men aren't mocked for expressing doubt or pain, but respected for their honesty. Where silence is no longer a survival strategy, but a choice to pause, reflect, and then speak with clarity. That's the way forward. Not perfection, not pressure, but giving men permission to be fully human again. And if we can do that, if we can start listening instead of judging, maybe the next generation won't feel like they have to give up quietly. Maybe they'll finally feel free to live loudly. You've heard the numbers. You've seen the struggles. But the real question is, What do we do with it? Because here's the truth. Silence is easy. It's easy to scroll past. It's easy to say, that's not my problem. But when we do that, we're part of the reason men are giving up. So pause for a second. Think about your brother, your father, your son, your best friend. Who do you know that might be carrying more than they let on? What if you checked in? What if you asked a simple, hey, are you really okay? What if you created the space where they didn't have to pretend to be strong all the time? Because this isn't just about men. It's about all of us. Families, communities, futures. When boys and men lose hope, the world loses something too. But here's the good news. One small act, one honest conversation, one moment of listening, it can change everything. So take this with you. Don't just watch this video. Reflect, share it, start the conversation. And maybe, just maybe, we can help more men choose to live loudly instead of giving up quietly.